Hello, Billy. Good to see you there. Well done. Lovely. Thanks for that. Hello, 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 hello. I hope, so there's two of you out there, Billy and somebody else at the moment. That's fantastic. Okay, so welcome. Oh, look, my tea's in shot. That's nice. Martin, good to see you. Hello. Fantastic. Hello, folks. Gosh, it's a funny old day today. Funny old day. I'm a little bit kind of, on edge for some reason. Well, I mean, apart from doing this, but it's been one of those sort of Monday mornings that are a little bit nervy for some reason. Don't know whether anybody else has found that. Some mornings are a little bit like that, aren't they? So today, Mark, hello, sunny Cornwall. Excellent. I hope it is sunny down there at the moment, because up here it's quite grey and damp, distinctly damp. I've got a very wilting sunflower just outside my office, which is literally just over the top of this camera. And the poor thing is looking distinctly droopy right now, Mark. Anyway, good to see you. So we're going to be talking about pendulums. We're going to be talking about dowsing in general. And we're going to touch on a little bit of housekeeping. We will basically go with the flow as to whatever you would like. Hello, Sally. Whatever you would like to talk about today. Do ask the questions. We've got a question from Billy, and Billy's going to be very much in the background today. Poor things, in a bit of pain there, we think. So a bit of healing love going Billy's way, if we could, please. Got a question from a lady called, I think it's a lady, Saria, and there's Billy. So we'll cover those two off, and they're both about pendulums and pendulum dowsing. So that's really why we'll kind of focus on that. But anything you want to ask as we go along, just dive in there and ask a question. Hello, Tom. Good to see you. Nice smiley face there. Phyllis, hey. So just dive in with a question anytime, and we'll sort of circle around and pick it up if I don't notice it straight away. So we'll see how we go along. So few bits of housekeeping as per usual. And the other thing to say, sorry. Oh, Billy, and the broken toilet. Okay, yes, of course, Mercury retrograde. Yes, I think it's just started. Hello, Nancy. I can't remember when it kicked in, but we're into another process where communications and flow is going to be perhaps a little bit tricky. Hello, Summer. Whoops. I just put my foot on the dog. That's made him move. Bless him. So, where are we going to today? One thing I want to say for those that are watching this on playback, if you don't want to go with the meandering chit chat, that is very much a feature of the lives themselves. Very much meandering. I think today's might be more meandering and full of more ums and ahs than usual, perhaps. Then check out the playlist of edited highlights, because I did try to get some cut together and pop them in there. So if you don't like the if you don't like the meandering chit chat, check out the highlights playlist. 13th of October till the 4th of November. That's quite a while. Billy, rest your hands. Take it easy. Although it's lovely to see you. So, okay, that's the meandering chit chat. Now, housekeeping. One of the things that I mentioned last week was that. Hello, David. Good to see you. Nancy, I'm glad you enjoyed the meandering part. I do really, but it's just, in my brain, these pauses go on for a lot longer than they do from your perspective as well. I always feel that I have to fill the dead space, as they say. Thank you, Billy, but do rest. So where was I going? Housekeeping. Yeah, one of the things that I mentioned last time when we talked about housekeeping was the Knights Rose Professional House Healers course that I'm running at the moment. So we did a little shout out for that last week. And this is a reminder. We've actually got 6 people signed up for that, which is fabulous. There is room for 2 more. So if anybody else that's watching this on playback or whatever is perhaps interested in maybe looking at what's involved in being a professional house healer and really putting the things that we talk about on this channel, the things that I share with you to a certain degree here, we go into much more detail. We'll dive in really quite deeply into it, because there is a great deal of change and healing effect, well-being, change for people's benefit that can take place on the spiritual level. And obviously that's what the house healing is about. It's not just about working with the space of the house. It's about working with that space to initiate change for the people that live in it. Because obviously, as you will gather, as being a regular, what we deal with is the fact that we are co-creators. So I was talking to somebody this morning about it, and we're the antennas, we're the transmitters and receivers of the reality process. So we can't do any healing on a space without it obviously affecting the person. It's just a healing mode, as in the same way as an osteopath works on the skeleton of a person. They work on the energy level, but the physical being. This is, house healing work is right up the other end of the scale. We've got the very subtle energy levels all down here, and they go all the way up to the physical work that somebody like an osteopath or a chiropractor, for example, would do. All about well-being, but just in a different aspect. And sometimes this is more suitable than some of this for obviously different instances. I wouldn't try to do spiritual healing on somebody that's suffering from, hello, Rick, from, a physical complaint necessarily. Although obviously it can help because it helps stabilize the ground level, because the spiritual aspect is what everything else sort of jumps off from. Now, I have a very itchy dog down here by me on the floor. And so if you hear some peculiar, yes, well, it is, Rick, indeed. If you hear some peculiar slurping noises, then obviously that's, bless him, that's my dog Jasper. So we'll just try and see how we go. Hello, JF. Half hour for you today. Rightio, you're leaving halfway through, and Rick is leaving halfway through too. Excellent. Yeah. So, yes, Billy, don't even try to do any links. JF can do some if he wants. I don't ask either of you to do it. But I'm very glad when you volunteer, but Billy needs to rest up today. The kingdom of God, Rick, is very much within. Your jumper? I'm jumping all over. What's wrong with my jumper? Oh, the jumper is jumping all over. Oh, yeah, look, it's got the moire pattern. That's that's when we were in the, oh, bless, when we were in the video business. We used to really object if somebody wore something with a tight sort of pattern like this, because if with any video camera, as you can see, it really causes an interference pattern, a visual interference pattern. We might talk some more about interference patterns, because that is what I was talking to somebody about this morning about earth energy. And there's lots of emerging ways of looking at earth energy itself. As simply interference patterns within the electromagnetic field that we all live in. So it's very, very interesting. But anyway, there you go. Sorry about that. You'll have to put up with that. Sometimes, obviously, we get the moire pattern on the lens as well. But let's get on. So if you pop over to the knightsrose.com, JF, actually, if you could put the... you could put the thanks for the zebras. You could pop the link to the house healing page, please, JF. That would be fantastic. So that's on knightsrose.com under the workshops. I think you did that last. Yeah, there you go. Look, she's on it. Stop fiddling with the links, Billy. Rest. Leave it to JF. He's here for half an hour. Okay. I mean it in the nicest possible way. That'd be great. So that's there. Check it out if you're interested in that housing and working with the energy in a very deep level. That's fantastic. Now, a few of you popped over to a channel run by a lady called Lisa M. Gunshaw when I was doing an interview over there a few weeks ago. That's the Buddhist biohacker. She's great. Really like her. Really like what she's doing. And she's actually running, she's facilitating, she's leading a healing event 7th to the 14th of November online. If you check out, you could pop this one up as a link as well, JF. It's www.oneheartoneearth. So all spelled as words, oneheartoneearth.net. And so that's might be something of interest to you. There's about 30 or so facilitators, something like that are taking part in those 2 weeks. I'm on there on Tuesday. Hang on, which day am I on there? Tuesday, November the 10th. Tuesday, November the 10th. I'm doing a live interview with Lisa, and we're talking about healing your world, healing your home, healing your world, that sort of stuff. If you want to pop over there, then do check it out. Sign up if you want, and you can always unsubscribe after the event. But anyway, it's 2 weeks of lots of different presenters doing loads of different stuff. All looks quite good, all looks quite interesting, and it is all definitely done with with great intent. Lisa M. Gunshaw, she's great, got a really good heart. So there you go, good event there. If those of you are on Instagram, you might want to follow her over there as well. So Nancy, I'm all out of focus. Well, my camera tends to go in and out, but there you go. Yes, I know. We were just talking about that, Voiken, Full Monty. I won't be wearing this one again. I'm not going to take it off, but I've got billions of layers on here. This is what it's like in Cornwall. So that's Lisa M. Gunshaw, Buddhist biohacker. Check out One Heart, One Earth. You might be interested in that 7th to 14th of November, which of course for those in the USA is when the elections are on. Now, other things we are doing, and in fact, Voiken, I must send you a mail and we'll get a chat organised. You and I want to know more about Seth and Jen Robbins, whatever her name was. Gosh, sorry, I've forgotten her name already. I've got it on the notes. Anyway, but other things that we're doing. I've done an interview. I've had a really interesting conversation. For those of you that are like the scientific orientated stuff, had a really good conversation with Ian Jameson again recently. And we were sort of asking the question, could he come up with science that says, right, where's the dowsing mode? Where's the... Yeah, okay, all right, Margie. Are they, what, from now till 14th of November? I mean, are they voting now? I don't know how it works. You've got all the preamble. It's a very different system over there. Anyway, so talking to Ian about could he sort of identify somewhere within the physiology that the process of dowsing might actually take place. So we know that we talk about dowsing as being the role of the intuition coming through, giving a message within us in our subconscious. Somewhere in our subconscious, the body does something that elicits the muscular reaction, the muscular response, and gives us the reaction from the pendulum. Oh, okay. Oh, good. Excellent. Thanks, Margie. Cool. So we know that the intuition, we're saying, right, we're accessing information. It's coming through subconsciously. The process is all subconscious until the actual response occurs with the dowsing pendulum or the dowsing rod. So coming up soon, when I've done some work on it so that we can try and kind of make it clearer as a process, what Ian's done is talked us through some really significant stages of science, going into the quantum areas of consciousness and theories of how consciousness might kind of function, and aspects within the physiology that might enable that to be the case. And really interesting stuff, but it is quite heavy, and it was an hour that we spent talking about it. So I want to do some work on that, but that's going to be coming up on the channel soon. And also I'm doing an interview with a guy called Matt Greenshields, who's a lovely fella, and we're going to be talking about Zen, right? So some of you might be into Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, that old book that I've never actually read, to be honest. But Zen as a concept for relaxing, for chilling, for focusing. We're going to be talking about that, so that should be really interesting. And I'm also having a chat with a guy called Gary M. Vasey. I did an interview with him, talked a little bit about dowsing, but Gary is going to reciprocate, and we're having a chat tomorrow, actually. And we're going to be talking about magic and the role of the magician and what's all that about, because he's using that terminology in the way that he relates to subtle energies, and that includes earth energy, of course. So we'll see where all that goes. So that's going to be interesting. So we've got some great content coming up in the future. Just wanted to keep you in the picture. Sometimes you'll notice that I kind of we get some lulls in content coming up, and it's basically because I'm too busy to get content up. But we'll see. I'm trying to get to a position where we get more regular content coming up, so we can enliven the channel a bit more. But I have to say, it's lovely for obviously the regulars are here, which is lovely to see you all. I am getting a little bit not gobsmacked, but it's lovely to get so much interest. We've got over 6,000 subscribers generally now on the channel, which is absolutely fantastic. And it really does reflect the fact that people, I mean, I know my channel's tiny compared to some of the channels out there that are dealing with this sort of stuff, but it really does reflect the fact that people are getting really quite interested in waking up. And that refers back again to One Heart, One Earth, because that's all about waking up and moving on, taking control of your own reality, really, from the basis of subtle energy. And as we know, dowsing is a fantastic way to start to sort of lever that as a step forward. Excuse me while I slurp my tea. A bit of non-caffeinated Ruby Bosch tea there. So some of the new people that have been joining and subscribing, they've been leaving comments, and there's I'm pretty sure there's a lady called Saria, who says that she's been working with L rods for the last month. She's getting quite good with them, and she would like to practice with the pendulum. So she says, please, can I suggest where she can get a pendulum like the one actually that I use, which is this one. You would have seen this one many a time in various videos. She'd appreciate if I can make a video on picking and purchasing a pendulum for beginners. Well, I'm not going to do a separate video, a pre-recorded version of that, because I think that actually we'll run through a few basics with a pendulum for beginners. But I think that actually that one of the things about choosing a pendulum is that it's very, very individual. There you go, bless you, Dan. Yeah, I think it is labradorite. Well, I think let's just move that. Will it focus on that? Because it's actually got a bit of a, well, maybe it won't focus. Let's just put that there. Maybe it's bigger. Right. Okay. So now it can focus. No. Yeah, there you go. So I don't know whether you can see that it's got a bit of a shine of that pearlescence to it as well. So I think it might be labradorite. Yeah. So I'll come back to that in a sec. So this actually wasn't my first pendulum. I had one from the British Society of Dowsers. If you Google BritishDowsers.org, then you'll come up with the British Society of Dowsers, and the American Society of Dowsers do exactly the same thing. They have a shop on their website. And you can do that. Let's show that. So that's fine. I haven't got a problem with whatever that is that Sue Weaver's recommending, as long as it's connected to dowsing. Mark, I presume it's about pendulums. So JF, if you just check that out for me, please, that'd be great. What I'm saying is that I had a pendulum from the British Society of Dowsers to start with, and the one that they were kind of made available was quite a nice weighted metal one. This one, as you say, is a crystal one. But the key thing is, as far as I'm concerned, is to get a pendulum that has got a decent weight to it. I mean, I don't know how many grams that is, but that's got a decent weight. I can feel that moving in. That's fine, Mark. Thanks very much. Thanks. I can feel that moving in my fingers, right? I don't need to be looking at it when I'm doing dowsing work on a floor plan for a house or something like that. It'll just respond. So I can feel that moving in a clockwise direction from here, which is my yes response. So you want to be able to feel the weight of it and to feel it moving. Sometimes with some of these light wooden ones, for me, they're just not heavy enough. You can't feel it. You've got to watch what it's doing. That's not that I don't want to be watching my pendulum for a start. Watching it for like an hour and a half or something, doing floor plan work. So you want to be able to feel it, not watch it. The other thing is, you'll see that this one has also got a chain. Let's focus on that again. There you go. So it's got a chain. It's not like a thread, right? It doesn't matter if it's a chain like that or a multi-woven thread. What you don't want is like a single thread that's going to be trying to do its own thing. The reason they put them on chains is so that you don't get any effect of twiddling or kind of a winding effect that's going to influence, when we douse, we want to be looking for a positive response, and therefore it's a circular motion. You don't want your attachment that you're holding it by, in other words, a cord, to be influencing the motion of the pendulum. Okay, so that's something that you want to be aware of. Sometimes people do go out and buy massive pendulums, and like this is that's about an inch. Sometimes people come up with these things that are a good 2 inches or maybe even 3, and that's just too heavy. It's like hard work. It's hard work to even pick it up off the desk, let alone work with it for an hour. So I would say, although as Billy said, your pendulum chooses you. You go for one that really jumps out at you. I think, oh, that's really nice, isn't that? That's lovely. One that if you're in a shop would jump out at you like that, and you could feel the weight of it, so you get that tactile response. Or on a website, you'll just notice that something will pop off the screen, and then just kind of feel. If you get something popping out of the screen and think, oh, well, actually that's really nice, you look at it, then just what does your heart feel? What do you feel in your body in response to it? What do you emotionally feel in it? So just allow and go for it. It's all right. It's all right, JF. Don't worry. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about that. Okay. Yeah. So hello, Sage. Nice to see you there. And Mark. Yes. Yes. Well, you see, the thing is that I don't use a pendulum when I'm outside. This is the thing. So if somebody's going to be doing a lot of pendulum work outside, then I can understand why they might go for a massive pendulum to sort of counteract the effect of wind. I don't use a pendulum outside. That's when I use my rods, and they will respond against the wind. So, and that's really because I'm doing, if I'm outside dowsing, then usually I'm either dowsing around where to put a tree or a plant or something like that in the garden, or I'm out dowsing earth energy. Certainly that's what I used to be doing, was taking the rods out and douse sacred sites a lot, in the days when I had time to be doing that. And yeah, Phyllis, there's absolutely no problem using anything like a necklace, as long as you're comfortable using it, but also as long as it's not going to have a mind of its own in terms of what the thread is doing or however it's attached, right? The only other thing to say about that is, with any pendulum that you're going to pick up, when you first get it, before you start using it, you do want to clear it, and especially so with crystals. Now, and this might apply more to a necklace, Phyllis, is that if you're wearing a necklace a lot, then you might be, depending on how sensitive you are and all that sort of stuff, it might be that the crystals of the necklace actually pick up on some when you're feeling lower. So let's call it lower vibrational energy, shall we? So it might be an idea to regularly clear the necklace, or even just clear it before you do a little bit of dowsing. Okay, so and this is what I was saying about when you get a new one from a shop or from a website, when it arrives, treat it rather like something that is alive. So you do actually want to welcome it. You take it out and you would welcome it, but you'd also just ask, you'd thank it for coming to you and for being present, and you kind of look forward to working with it. And obviously you're connecting to upstairs while you're doing this, but you would also ask upstairs to clear the device, to clear the pendulum, so that it is suited for you, and it is primed and ready to be working with your energy, always for the utmost good and for the greatest best possible outcome. Simply ask that any detrimental energy is taken away from it, and visualize. This is where you would visualize something like a really fine textured net or something like that, just going through that, and take that away. So just clear it, take away all detrimental energy. You can go like at a subatomic level or something like that. So just ask for that to pass through the pendulum, and you clear it, take away all detrimental energy, and take it away to the light to be processed for the good of the universe in the future as appropriate under the laws of grace. Okay, so those are the sort of things you want to be clearing. Now, Rick, of course. Now, yes. So I remember now. I recognise your name, Rick, and you have mentioned a couple of times that you've been having trouble with tricksters. So I did ask you before to send me an email link. It's not like I'm going to charge you. It's easier to have a private conversation on email if we're trying to move you forward. So if you're still suffering from those trickster energies all the time, Rick, drop me an email using the contact form on my website, and we can pick that conversation up in a private space, right? I'm sure you might be able to help move on from it without going into the detail of doing a formal session together. All right. So yeah, trickster energy, it can be a mixture of things. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a mischievous imp, or it can be that you are simply not getting focused enough, not getting really in the zone. And what do we mean by trickster energies? Well, you can get all sorts of strange answers, for one thing. But there's all sorts of things, and there's all sorts of reasons why we can get those sort of circumstances. Okay, so let's talk about those in a minute. Let's just carry on talking about the actual pendulums itself. Remind me, we'll circle back round a bit later on and talk a bit more. Okay, Rick. Yeah, no, I never got it. So sorry, if you don't mind sending me again, then we could try again. If you use the contact form, so go to the website. And you should be able to just fill in the contact form and click send, and it should come through to me. It may have been that the website wasn't passing them forward, but if that was the case, I don't know how many other things I missed during that time. But thanks. But have a go again, see what we can do. So crystals. If you've got a crystal, definitely clear it. And in fact, some people do say, even if you've been dowsing for a little while. In fact, Hamish used to say this, my dear old mentor, as I call him. Hamish used to say, every time you use a crystal pendulum, if you're starting to do a dowsing session, clear it every time so that you know that it's cleared. Because, as he said, sometimes they would pick up memory. They would just store memory responses. So try clearing it every time you pick one up. I don't clear this very often. It has to be said. What I do is clear my office and my room. I make the assumption, and maybe I shouldn't make the assumption, that is also getting cleared at the same time. It's a good point. So you've raised that, and that's actually made me think about how often I clear that individually. So that's crystals, right? Now the reason it's a good shape like that, with a nice point at the bottom, is because some people use them, and they literally. Well, let's use this for a second. Let's use something else. I'm just sort of illustrating a very vague point. Some people, if that was a floor plan or something like a map or something like that, then some people will use the pendulum looking for something, and they'll literally pull the pendulum across the page, really low against it, and the point, therefore, is literally the pointing sharp end, and that's gonna sort of stick at a point, and you can then find what you're looking for like that. I don't work that way, as most of you will know. If I'm searching for something, I know this is blank, but if I'm just illustrating, if I'm using a floor plan, then most of you will know that I use my left hand as a pointer, and I am holding the pendulum in my right hand, and expect that the pendulum will respond. I ask the pendulum to respond when I get to the appropriate point. Okay, so. But if you're not going to work with a pendulum in the manner of, dragging it around across the thing like that, there's no reason necessarily to have a pointy end to it. It could just be a cube. It could be any shape you like. Okay, so that's not particularly significant, except if you're working it, depends how you're working with it. As we said, wooden ones tend to be a bit light. They get thrown around a lot. Some people really like to have a way of putting what they call a witness in the pendulum itself. So sometimes you can, I haven't seen any for a little while, I have to say, but you can find pendulums with well, obviously not in crystal, but with other ones, you can find a little space in it that you could put, if you were looking for a person or a lost animal, for example, you might get the owner of the lost pet to send you a bit of fur sample, a bit of dog hair or something, great having that arrive through the post, but pop that in the pendulum. That gives you your witness, which in other words gives you the energy that you're looking for. You're trying to track down and trace the pet, say, then you've got it there. You primed the pendulum, if you like. Again, I don't use witnesses, but the sort of work that I do is not really, ultra specific, working in the three-dimensional world. If I was working with looking for oil fields, for example, then maybe what I would do is have a little bit of the raw material in a little canister sitting on my desk, so that I could be really tuned in to what it is I'm looking for. Because don't forget, most of the time it doesn't affect affecting the balance, even if it's sort of swinging a little bit off vertical, perpendicular, vertical. It doesn't really matter. It's most of the time the response, if you're looking yes and no, doesn't really matter in that sense, Billy. But the crucial thing about any dowsing is that you get your mind really, really, really focused on what it is you're looking for. Now, with the intangible things like earth energy, that can be a little bit tricky. But obviously with tangible things, like we said, lost animals or people, or some people use dowsing as part of their metal detecting process. So if they're looking for metal, then they might want to have a little witness with them and douse over a map to find out where they want to go metal detectoring, for example. So there are those sort of pendulums. That's another kind of option that's there. Length of chain, that's another good one, isn't it? I mean, at the moment you'll see, heaven forbid, if you can let me put it against the door, right there, I've got a knot in this chain. Some people put a lot of, what's the word, when you put a lot of emphasis on something like that. That's with a group of dowsers once, and I mean, I do clear the chain. I don't like having a knot in the chain. It's just, it occurred a few days ago and I haven't been able to undo it. But I was with a group of dowsers once, and I had like a couple of knots in the chain, and they were like, "Oh, you can't use a pendulum with a knot in the chain. No, it's a symbol from upstairs. It's a sign. There's something you need to know." And they might be right. They might be right. And if you choose to work with upstairs, that is the case, then you will find that you will get a lot of knots in your chain. I'm going to stop fiddling with it because it's a bit distracting while I'm talking to you. But that's an example of the way that you will develop your own process with the dowsing. Okay, so it's not about dowsing in any form is not about this is the way to do it. Now, the only thing, of course, there's a caveat to that, because the only thing where it is, this is the way to do it, is that you have to be tuned in. Even if you're looking for three-dimensional, you're looking for an oil field, like I said earlier on, if you're looking for an oil field, you've still got to be tuned in. There's no point, somebody that does this professionally, looking for minerals or whatever, are not going to just kind of wander in with a cup of tea, oink, oink that down and start dowsing with the other hand while they're eating a bacon sandwich. That is not the way to get good answers. And I'm not saying that any of you do that. I'm just saying clearly. So the only do's and don'ts for dowsing is that you must tune in, and you really want to be working on that ability to focus the mind and tune in for as long as possible, as accurately as possible. And that's where the meditation comes in that I always go on about. So that's why meditation helps the dowsing, because it helps you stay focused, because it just does. Because it's controlling, you're learning to control the mind, you're learning to be aware of the mindful processes that take place when you're dowsing. Okay, so that's rule number one. The second rule is that you are obviously, as we've said before, dowsing is a two-stage process. You are obviously going to ask a question and receive a response. There is no point at all in going out with your pendulum or your rods and simply wandering around and expecting them to do something on their own and get understandable results by working that way, because they will do something on their own. They'll point, they'll cross, they'll open up. As you walk around, they'll do all sorts of things. But unless you've asked a question, you don't know what they're responding to. They could be responding to underground water. They could be responding to earth energy. They could be responding to the fact you're thinking about what you're going to go and pick up the kids later on from school or whatever. You know, it could be anything that they're responding to. So dowsing is a two-stage process. Okay, right. Let me just catch up on your comments there, because yep, that's absolutely fine. That's a good way to do it. The sound, singing bowl, it's all adding in intention. Yep, great. Thanks, JF. Oh yes, good. Been working well. Fantastic, excellent. Oh yeah, that's right. And then the balance is off a bit. I have a larger bead at the part to hold on mine, so it can rest between two fingers. Yeah, I've got you. Yeah, I see what you mean. So in that sense, so that end of the chain is sometimes larger. I think that's why it's easier to hold, and she basically will hold it up there. Some people teach dowsing where they've got a, I think the knot's got even bigger. By the end of our session today, it's going to be a huge knot. No, so some people will teach dowsing and say that, right, you know, you've got to hold it at the end, and they hold it with a really long chain, and it's like, yeah, we've got to hold it still and just wait for it to respond. And if you want to douse like that, that's fine. That is a way of doing it. It's just that for me that takes too long. I'm quite impatient, and the shorter the chain that you use, then the quicker it's going to respond. And that's the way that I tend to work. I mean, I will sometimes work with it that short. It's just an inch, and it responds straight away. It also doesn't have to, as a response, it doesn't have to be a big response, because dowsing, I know this is going to sound a bit daft to some of you. Okay, cheers, JF. Take care. Look after yourself over there. Dowsing is not really about that thing that you're holding. Even if you're looking for oil, you know, a three-dimensional, a real 3D thing, real substantial thing that you're looking for. Dowsing is actually about what goes on in here. This is the main thing that is important. The funny spiry jumper is not required, but what's going on inside is the really important part. It's not really to do with this. This is literally the very crude way that the tiny muscular responses get enlarged, they get exaggerated in the 3 dimensions. So that's why a pendulum is useful, because that's what we use it for. Is to exaggerate the muscular responses. So it in the same way as rods do exactly the same thing. They exaggerate the tiny muscular movement of the hand and the arms, which is the subconscious reaction. And that's a subconscious reaction in response to the question that you've asked. So this is, again, I said earlier on that the meditation is important because it focuses the mind. But also, the more you dowse, what you want to be doing is to learn about the processes that go on within you. So what does it feel like? So now, and this is part of the trouble why when we get trickstery sort of energies and we get distracted by that, what actually happens is that our mind gets pulled more into worrying. I mean, it's not really a worry, but being concerned about or being bothered by that energy that is distracting us away from actually being focused here within what we're doing. So if we're looking for something, especially if we're looking for something remotely, a long way away, and we're doing work that's on the other side of the world, for example, well, again, it's not peculiar to house healing. Somebody that's doing oil exploration work for, and I keep talking about oil, but that's only because it's a really good example, but somebody that's doing oil exploration work as a professional dowser for a company that's looking for oil is going to be dowsing potential oil fields or, way over on the other side of the world. Now, of course, I know that oil is not a terribly, environmentally friendly thing to be looking for, but that's not really the issue that we're dealing with at the moment, okay? But what I'm saying is the process of searching. So as you're dowsing, you're saying, okay, please show me where an appropriate area is for it. Let's say exploration. Then you're becoming, as the dowser, and if you're doing the method that I use, which is the finger on the piece of paper or, whatever, or the atlas, then you're becoming incredibly aware. All of your focus is actually going on what you're looking for, but also what you're feeling. What you're feeling not only in your fingers there, but also in the body, quite often in the heart. And so, and listening as well. It's just being incredibly, tune up all your internal senses so that you listen, you feel, you are aware, and you also watch as well with your mind, because you can close your eyes. I mean, I've closed my eyes now because I'm in the habit when I'm dowsing, closing my eyes. Part of that is so that I'm not influenced by the floor plan that I'm working with, but also so that I can concentrate. Hello, Surya. Hi. So we've sort of moved on from the initial aspect of picking up a pendulum, but do watch the earlier part back again later. So, oh, great. Thanks, Billy. Thanks for that. So the focus is not only in your own body, but also you can focus on what you're looking for as the target. So you've already got that kind of feeling of what you're looking for and what you're expecting to find and all the rest of it, right? But you can also listen, because sometimes when you hit, you get the message, you get the hit. But even before the pendulum moves to give you a yes, you might get like a loud noise, kind of I'm going to say imaginary noise, but what I mean is an internal. You might hear like a crack or you might even hear a voice say, "Yep, that's it," or anything like that, right? So there's a whole mass of stuff that's going on inside, but you've got to be really focused and drop into that inner space in order to be able to pick up those subtleties. That as a process is not necessarily going to be something that you're aware of, in the first week of dowsing with the pendulum. Excuse me, I do need a cup of tea. So, okay, so let me just, we're going to come back. Well, we sort of covered some of Rick's questions about trickster energy. Yeah, I mean, okay. So one of the other things about we'll come on to Billy's question in a minute, but one of the other things about trickster energy is trickster stuff. The energies that are out there can sometimes be a little bit playful. If when we're dowsing, it's very, 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 very unlikely that we get anything that actually is nasty. There is nothing for a dowser, for a standard dowser, and especially for somebody that's learning. There is no excuse me, there is nothing out there to be fearful of, but we do recommend that you do psychic protection exercise and or any other protection that you want to put in place as part of good practice. It's because we are dealing with energies that are powerful. They can be powerful. So you need to get into the good habits and the good practice. And so therefore, before you do any dowsing session, get in there and do the psychic protection. Okay, good. So, oh, hello, Patty. That's nice to see you. Psychic protection. What was that? Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry, I was momentarily lost where I was going. So there's not a very big chance. There's a tiny fractional chance. I mean, dowsing is the safest way to start working with the subtle energies, without a doubt. Now, if you're being bothered by tricksters, then it is going to be, if it is genuinely trickster energy, it's going to be just like a little fey, a little thing that just likes because it can irritate. It knows it can irritate. Then it'll just do it for fun. It's rather like having a child, a toddler, that just is interfering just because it can. It wants the attention. These are not big, heavy, dark stuff most of the time. Well, I've never come across it, but Rick, you may have done. We'll see. You know, one of the things actually. This does tie in. This is a point. This does tie in with. I got a second-hand book. Just let me take the thingy out. Got a second-hand book from the store that most of us love to hate. This is a book by Michael Bentine. Now, Michael Bentine was a British comedian, and he actually was one of the founding members of the Goons with Peter Sellers and Harry Seacombe and Spike Milligan. This is. I hadn't realised this was something that was written in 1990. So it's an old second-hand copy, which has been cleared, but it's very yellowed pages. But anyway, the point was that this is Michael Bentine was actually trained by his father in some very interesting techniques about opening his imagination and then opening into a mindful state. Working with subtle energies, basically. Now, bearing in mind this was written back in 1990, he's also quite, he puts a lot of cautions in to start with in this book. I'm only on page 34. And one of the cautions that he does say is, now he talks about scrying, which is about getting visions and this sort of stuff. I'll just go back. I'm going to read a little paragraph here. It says, whether the scryer is using tarot, the I Ching, the runes of the Norsemen, or simpler forms of divination, such as the Ouija board, with all its attendant perils, which we've talked about before, or the upturned glass, or even the basic yes-no system of the Dowser's pendulum, the danger is always the same: over-dependence on any form of communication with the unconscious mind and its archetypes of the collective unconscious. Those shadowy but nonetheless real creations of centuries of human belief in their existence is bound to weaken the will and lead to all sorts of psychological troubles, ranging from a nervous breakdown to total insanity. Possession and obsession, he says, are close companions once the human will is suborned and disorientated. And he says, I've known unfortunate people who became too closely involved with those methods of prophecy and then found it impossible to stop using them. So that, I mean, that's a rather dramatic warning that Michael Bentine offers there. You know what I mean? But the key thing there that he's talking about is over-dependence on dowsing. So, because what happens is once you get really, really happy and confident with your dowsing and you really get going with it, then you actually start to ask everything about everything. You consult the dowsing for every decision. And dowsing and all of this subtle energy work is actually not about letting go of your power. It's not about taking a decision-making process away from you and sort of handing it over to something else. Right? That's not what we talk about here at all. That is not what it's about. Now he's saying that that's what he's encountered in the past, and that is a real danger, because what we're actually trying to do here is completely the opposite. We're trying to use dowsing and these methods of accessing information and enhancing what is innate in every single one of us, actually for the opposite effect, to actually assist and allow yourself to step back into your power so that you actually are in control of your life. Now, what you're doing is accessing your subconscious, which is a general process and is generally far more accepted now than it was in 1990. And that's part because of the whole global awakening. As everybody wakes up, we're all far more tuned in again now. So there was very much a period of time when this sort of discussion just we wouldn't have been having it. Anyway, so there's a word of warning there from good old Michael Bentine. It's quite an interesting book. It's called Open Your Mind, The Quest for Creative Thinking. It's one particular aspect, one particular view of it, but as an individual, it's quite interesting how much he was brought up with the understanding that the subjective reality is very, very important to each of us. Sherry. Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's the witness. Yep, that's it. Okay, cool. So thanks, Anne. That's good. And Sherry, yep, that's it. A witness pendulum. So you can douse it for a witness pendulum. Perfect. Great. Yeah. So don't. What I would say is don't be scared of dowsing. It's a really you see. Okay, so there is so much material that we are bombarded with from the mainstream that actually portrays working in the subtle energies as being either really cool, like a really cool thing to do, a really dramatic thing to do, a really special thing to do, which it isn't. And I mean, most of you will recognize this. It isn't any of those things. It's not special. It's not cool. It's because it is a fundamental part of being a human being. It has its processes that you want to follow, and you want to do so, rigorously and with that respect. But it isn't something that's dangerous in that sense of you're not going to get caught up, and you're not going to get possessed or anything like that. Now, having said that, I might sound as though I'm sort of being a little bit facetious with it. I'm not actually, because when I was going through the big, we'll call it a spiritual awakening, when I was discovering the incarnate soul of the lady that was living in our house when we moved into that house, and that whole process of waking up and becoming aware of this whole world of subtle energies. One of the big things that I was concerned about, because I was scared of most things in life. One of the things that I was concerned and scared, no, I wasn't scared of, I was concerned about, was the fear of being possessed by something that I couldn't get rid of. And actually, even in the deep and heavy work that we sometimes get involved in as house healers, most of the time, the heaviest energies that we come across with some unfortunate people that have, amassed this sort of darker energy around them through years of exposure to detrimental aspects. None of you, as far as I am aware, have anything like some of the stuff that we come across. But even those people can be helped and assisted, and those energies that are dragging them down can be got rid of. So, you know, everything that we encounter while we're in human form, everything that we encounter in our lives is created by God. It's created by the collective consciousness of the oneness. And so it's not like there's anything that is coming out of the woodwork or coming out of anywhere, coming out of the ether, that is not a product of either the human psyche or the energy fields associated with the creation of reality that occurs every moment of every day. So what I'm saying is that God, which is love, ultimate love, is always the ultimate creator. That is the ultimate. It's corny as heck to say that love conquers all. You know, it's been used in so many movies and so many books. But fundamentally, that's what you're doing, is creating and enhancing and becoming coherent with a greater state of love, because everybody is created from love. That's what God is. Gosh, we've got a bit deep and heavy here, haven't we? We started talking about pendulums and now we're onto the ultimate creator. But what I'm saying is that I want you to think, those of you that are nervous about the slightly darker side of stuff, A, don't worry about it, because most of the time with the dowsing that you're doing, you're not going into that space. B, even if you were, then you are protected instinctively, because you are part of God, and love is the fundamental underlying creative force. So, yes, I know you'll say, well, you look out the window and you don't see much love. That isn't the point. The fundamental creator, everything is permeated with love. Okay? It's actually up to us individually to work with the areas of the us where we don't find love. That's healing. And then actually what we do see is more and more love literally being presented in the surroundings, not only out there, but in here. Thank you. Thank you, Billy. Thank you for the time. Time check is great. I appreciate that. That's okay, Kenny Chris. Watch it on replay. Billy, that reminds me that I haven't come round to your question. We have 4 minutes and you're getting concerned. What Billy was actually asking is a really good question, because Billy basically has asked whether she can douse with the non-dominant hand. So I douse with the right hand and I get responses in that hand. Now, look, do you know what? I don't think I've never tried dowsing with my left hand, only with a pendulum. And in fact, that feels really weird. So Billy doused with the non-dominant hand and got reversed responses. I'm just reading the question. I wouldn't expect different responses. I would expect my yes in my right hand is a clockwise movement. I would expect the yes to be consistent, the same in the left hand. Part of the reason I say that is because when I'm holding rods, then obviously what we're doing is we're asking for a yes, and my yes is a crossing of the rods. Some people's yeses are moving away of the rods, but mine is a crossing of the rods. And so therefore, I see what you're saying. That is coming, but it's coming in, isn't it? It's a mirror image, right? So a yes, because that is the movement. But I can see what you're saying is that actually that is the opposite of that, because that is going to the right and that is going to the left. I wouldn't get hung up. I still don't expect that most dowsers would get opposite responses, left or right hand. But that does not mean to say that you, Billy, wouldn't. Well, Mark, okay. Well, I'm not going to try it, Billy, because actually it feels so weird that it's just weird. I've never doused. Hang on, Billy. Mark, we'll come to your question in a sec. So let me just okay, yeah. So if I ask for a yes response, I'm so self-conscious trying to do this in front of you guys. It's not doing anything. Well, it's not doing anything. It just feels incredibly weird. Incredibly weird. So yeah, that's no problem at all. That's a yes response there. Right. Okay, Billy. Don't get hung up on it, Billy. When your hands are better, try again and see what you get. It's a really interesting question, but I wouldn't personally expect it. But I've just demonstrated that actually I'm completely incapable of dowsing in a public arena with my left hand. So, and Mark, I think actually I'm not sure that I can answer your question either. So we're going to end on two questions that I can't answer. Earth energy spiked 5 days after and after a full and new moon. Well, not necessarily, Billy, but you know, see how you feel when you're better. Yeah, well, Mark, you're actually. I know what you mean. They do tend to move around. I've never particularly bothered about what the moon is doing in terms of affecting Earth energy lines. Now, you might be sort of horrified at that or shocked by that, but it's never really interested me that much. What has been really interesting is when we get the solstices and the equinoxes, they do move then. And in fact, trying to remember when I last doused, because what you can find is that actually the whole line travels. You can douse a whole line across a field. I can't remember whether it's an equinox or a solstice, I think. It's a regular thing. It's not just like when the moon is occluded, when it's in a whatever that is, when it goes dark, when it's eclipse. It's not just that, although the Earth energy does very strange things when you get an eclipse. But remind me, was it the Earth energy? Was it the solstice? Equinoxes. Okay, so fine. So yeah. Okay. So you can also get a lot more, Mark. I don't know whether when you tune into Earth energy, whether you can pick up a lot of spirit activity, a lot of personalities within the Earth energy, a lot of what we call spirits, not uncomfortable ones, but very pleasant ones, associated with Earth energy. Because what tends to happen is that when these terrific, when these equinox, when we get these moments of big shifts around with the Earth energy, it's also like there's a big party going on. So that's a really lovely time to be dousing Earth energy lines, because you just like, there's so much joy with it, and that's kind of that reflection of love as well. Joy and love, you know, they really are big, strong positives. So, Mark, I would keep dowsing, keep exploring what you're exploring, Mark, in the Earth energy, and just work with it. Be aware that, yeah, it could well, you know, it's going to fluctuate with the moon, but also if you're shifting and you're going through a healing process and an exploratory process and a development process, then your dowsing is going to change as well at the same time. You're going to be more sensitive to this stuff. So don't forget that either. That green wall has been green ever since I've turned around. What I do need to do is to do some more painting, but that's just out of shot, Tom. Okay, mate. No, it hasn't been it hasn't been painted since we were last on screen. No. Yes, I am sitting in a new direction. Yes, indeed, you can indeed do that. Yeah, and that's very much in the sort of Druid tradition, Mark, as well. Yeah. Again, it's all part of respect. It's all part of acknowledging the environment and all of the subtle energies and the natural world around you, and that which makes us into, which is part of the loveliness of it, I think. Although I have to say, again, yeah, it's been so long since I've actually worked out in the field in that way. But yeah, and a lot of the druid ceremonies, I've only been a couple, but they're really lovely. And that association is fantastic. Right. So any last questions? Or with 4 minutes over, it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to stick to the hour. Any last questions? I know there's a bit of a lag on the chat before they get through to me, but rattle off a question and we'll see. If there's any last minute things. Don't forget that we haven't got a live next week, just looking at the calendar. And there won't be one the week after. So we've got another 2 weeks hiatus. I'm doing the meditation first week of November. If anybody's interested in that, then do. Wonderful, Mark. Wonderful. Now you see that stuff. That is really interesting. Really interesting. Thank you, Mark. That I know very little about the Native American teachings, but the few glimpses that I've had into that kind of spiritual tradition have been awesome. In sense of, you know, really, really, really resonates. Beautiful stuff. Anyway, okay, Tom. Yes. Oh, right. Okay. Yes. Some of the Mayan teachings. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay. Tom, I don't know. I can't actually remember where I got that from. I actually can't remember. I've been thinking since saying about it. Kinney Chris. Oh yeah, from the altar. Well, now the rain. Kinney, great practical reason that I turned the desk around. It's not great feng shui, has to be said, because I've got a door behind me, which apparently is not a good thing in feng shui terms. But I'm now facing the window, so the light will come in when we've got sunshine, and it will put rainbows around the back here. But the reason that I've moved the table around is that I've got that, which actually is a mirror. I had to put the whiteboard up because to keep track of what's going on from month to month. Anywho, the rainbow's still there. Okay, any other last questions on dowsing? Otherwise, we'll pull it to a close. Mark, thank you very much for your input this today. That's been very nice. Thank you. Thanks to everybody that's left a comment, left a question, and contributed on the chat. Appreciate it all very much. I really do want you to keep asking the questions so that we can keep doing. Thanks, Rick. I look forward to hearing from you. Anybody else that wants to get in touch, do get in touch. I might not reply straight away, but do use the contact form on my website. And don't forget, I will be putting a little bit more up every now and again on the tab, the community tab. So if you want to stay in touch on YouTube rather than something like Facebook, click on that jolly old grey bell icon that we all go on about, because you should get notified, if you want to keep in touch, of what I'm putting on the community tab, which is more like an open forum, so just notification about what videos coming up and that sort of thing. Okay, Mark, thank you. Hugs back, mate. Hugs back. Lonnie, how lovely. That's nice. Thanks. Take care. So any of you that haven't clicked the grey bell icon, do click it, and we'll keep in touch that way. Okay. So just because I'm not here doing lives the next 2 weeks doesn't mean to say that I won't be putting content up. I will. Some of those interviews we talked about before. Keep your eyes open, because it's really interesting stuff. Okay. Thank you very much. Take care all. See you in a couple of weeks. Yeah, please hit the thumbs up. That's always good to know. Always good. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.